Good evening and welcome to NTD UK News. I'm Stuart Leeson here. Today's top stories. The vaccination programme in England is now extending to over 45s. England is starting to roll out the Moderna jab, the third COVID vaccine being used in the UK. And Scotland is easing some lockdown restrictions earlier than planned. People aged 45 and over in England are now invited to book their first dose of a COVID-19 vaccination. And the Prime Minister has also warned that with more unlocking, the infections number will go up again. NTD's Neil Woodrow brings us the story.
All those 50 and over and high-risk groups in the UK have now been offered their first dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. We're now entering what the government calls Phase 2. People aged 45 and over can now book their first shot. It comes one day after England reopened all retail, hairdressers, gyms and pub gardens. The Prime Minister spoke on Tuesday about what has helped in dealing with the pandemic.
Yes, of course, the vaccination programme has helped, but the bulk of the work in reducing the disease has been done by the lockdown. So, as we unlock, the result will inevitably be that we will see more infection. Sadly, we will see more hospitalisation and deaths. And people have just got to understand that.
He said he cannot see any reason to change the roadmap out of lockdown, and the government said it is on track to offer all adults a first jab by the end of July. Earlier on Tuesday, the NHS website crashed when it opened vaccinations up to the new age group. More than 32 million people in the UK have had their first dose. In the proportion of its population, the UK is second only to Israel. The Prime Minister has stressed the importance of the lockdown. Will May 17th still be the date to allow indoor socialising? Neil Woodrow, NTD News, Epsom, Surrey.
People in England are getting their first doses of the Moderna vaccine. Following AstraZeneca and Pfizer, it's the third COVID-19 jab rolled out across the nation.
NHS Medical Director Professor Stephen Powis says the Moderna rollout marks another milestone in the vaccine programme. Along with the Pfizer jab, it's an alternative to the AstraZeneca vaccine for under 30s.
So I was originally booked in for the Oxford vaccine last week, but that was cancelled and rearranged given the new guidance on blood clots.
Moderna's vaccine is a 2-dose jab given at an interval of between 4 and 12 weeks. It's available at more than 20 sites starting Tuesday. More sites will offer the jab as more supplies arrive.
It's been really efficient in reorganising it so quickly, and I think it reassures people that there are alternatives if they're worried.
Moderna is an mRNA vaccine, just like the Pfizer vaccine. The UK government is committed to buying 17 million doses of Moderna, enough for around 8.5 million people. Wales and Scotland began their Moderna vaccine rollouts last week. According to the government website, possible side effects of the Moderna vaccine include headaches, nausea, vomiting, muscle aches and feeling very tired. Whereas if people feel faint or lightheaded or their heartbeat changes, they feel short of breath or are wheezing or their lips, face, tongue or throat swells, they need to get urgent medical attention.
Researchers say the Kent variant of the CCP virus is not more deadly than the original strain, but it's more transmissible. The Kent variant is also known as the UK variant.
2 new studies suggest the Kent variant of the virus causing COVID-19 is not more deadly than the original strain, and one confirms that the strain is more transmissible by at least 35%. That means it spreads more quickly. These findings partially contradict earlier suggestions that the variant could be significantly deadlier. The studies used different methods. One looked at patients infected with the variant at 2 London hospitals. The other analysed data from the King's College Symptoms Tracker app. The King's College study also suggests the variant does not alter symptoms or lead to more patients suffering from long COVID. The Kent variant first appeared in Kent in September. The variant quickly spread across London and southern England. It went from an estimated 3% of cases in England at the end of October to 96% at the start of February. The variant is seen as the key driver for current infections in the UK, Europe and North America, and has been found in over 100 countries. Existing vaccines appear to work against it.
The largest surge to date of testing for the CCP virus is underway in parts of South London. It's after a cluster of cases of the South African variant has developed there.
NHS Test and Trace is providing extra testing and genomic sequencing mostly in the boroughs of Wandsworth and Lambeth. More than 70 confirmed or probable cases of the South Africa variant of the virus have been found in this area. The first case was identified in early March. The Chief Medical Advisor for NHS Test and Trace, Dr. Susan Hopkins, stressed it's really important for people in a local area to play their part in stopping any further spread within the local community. The government is urging everyone aged 11 years and over who resides in, works in, or travels through these boroughs to take a COVID-19 PCR test, whether showing symptoms or not. The Department of Health and Social Care is calling it the largest surge testing operation to date.
Over in Hong Kong, hammer-wielding intruders attacked the printing press of an independent newspaper yesterday. The paper's spokespersons say they suspect that Chinese authorities are behind the attack. NTD's Penny Zhou brings us the story.
Things are getting increasingly difficult for Hong Kong's independent media. The Epoch Times Hong Kong edition had their printing house smashed by hammer-wielding intruders. The four men barged into the printing plant and started destroying printing equipment. They also stole a computer. Now the news outlet has suspended printing due to the damage. The Epoch Times is the sister media of NTD. The paper is known to have drawn the ire of Chinese authorities. That's because they have reported extensively on human rights abuses in China and Beijing's crackdown on Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement. This is the fifth time the paper's printing facilities are attacked. The same printing house was set on fire in 2019. Hong Kong police say they still haven't found the suspects. The facility was also attacked in 2006 and twice in 2013. Police have not filed charges in any of the cases. Earlier this year, a reporter for the Epoch Times in Hong Kong said police in China threatened her family. They demanded that her family stop her from working for the paper, otherwise they would arrest her on charges under the national security law.
The police said if my parents lose their daughter, they will be really sad. Just threatening them like that.
The paper spokeswoman condemned the violence last night. She accused Chinese authorities of mounting the attack.
Such criminal act is not just targeting Epoch Times, but the free media of Hong Kong in general as well. The real purpose is to destroy the free flow of information in Hong Kong, Hong Kong society's fundamental fabric. We will not back down from our efforts of speaking for the silenced. We will not bow to the bullying.
Hong Kong's Journalists Association also released a statement against the violence. Last year, the Chinese regime pushed through a so-called national security law that punishes criticism against Beijing. Authorities have since conducted sweeping arrests of pro-democracy figures. Many said the law is an official death sentence for Hong Kong's freedom. Penny Zhou, NTD News.
UK and EU politicians and organisations have condemned the attack of the printing press of the Epoch Times in Hong Kong.
Members of the UK Parliament's upper house responded to the news of the attack on one of Hong Kong's independent media. Lord Hunt of King's Heath said he was very shocked to hear this. The Epoch Times is an amazing independent media outlet in Hong Kong, fearless and standing up for a free press and human rights. May its voice never be silenced. Lord Alton of Liverpool said, "Those who become enemies of freedom of speech, who smash up printing presses or threaten journalists, have no respect for human rights and show their fear of truth. Paradoxically, their use of violence, intimidation and brute force reveals their weakness and the nature of their ideology." And Baroness Kennedy of the Shores said, "Freedom of the press is fundamental to a democracy. Crushing the media and independent journalism is a way to deny citizens information about abuses of power and about the loss of their rights. Wrecking computers and printing equipment is the act of those who despise democracy." London-based writer and human rights activist, who is also the chief executive and co-founder of Hong Kong Watch, Benedict Rogers, commented that this attack on the Epoch Times is yet another deplorable example of increasing threats to media freedom and freedom of expression in Hong Kong and should be condemned unequivocally. An international cross-party group of lawmakers, the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China, said, "The freedom of press is an absolute requirement in any state that respects the rule of law. If the Hong Kong authorities really were independent champions of their democratic system, they'd defend the Epoch Times. Hong Kong has slipped into the grips of an authoritarian communist party that will tolerate no criticism."
And in other news, Scotland is easing some lockdown restrictions earlier than planned. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon announced on Tuesday that Scotland's travel ban will be lifted on Friday. People will then be able to travel anywhere within Scotland as long as they don't stay overnight. This is 10 days earlier than previously planned. People will also be allowed to meet up in larger groups. From Friday, 6 people from up to 6 households will be able to socialise together. Sturgeon said the move had nothing to do with the upcoming Holyrood election.